This unit is about land-based empires, how they grew, and how they were run. As the world changes and becomes more interconnected in this period of 1450 to 1750, religions start to change as well, and that's something that the College Board definitely wants us to know. So, a big question that we need to ask ourselves is, as these empires expand and absolute monarchies grow, how exactly does religion play into this? We've seen before how different rulers in different states can use religion in order to justify and maintain their rule. So, what's going on in these big land-based empires who are developing absolute monarchies from 1450 to 1750? One of the first major changes that we need to talk about is the Protestant Reformation in Europe and Christianity as a whole. So here's what we need to know. The Protestant Reformation marked a break with existing Christian traditions, and both the Protestant and Catholic Reformations, or the Catholic Counter-Reformation, contributed to the growth of Christianity. So, what does this mean? The Protestant Reformation, who exactly is protesting what? So, first, in order to understand what's going on, we need to talk about Christianity and how it had evolved. So, if we start with the origins of Jesus and his apostles, we can see that there are two major branches of Christianity. So, we have first, going into the Western, we have the Roman Catholic branch, and then we have the Eastern Orthodox. In 1054 is when this major split happens. As Roman Catholicism continues to dominate Europe and the Eastern Orthodox Church continues to dominate the Byzantine Empire and Russia and Eastern Europe, Roman Catholicism is not only the dominant religion, it's also a major political player. And in 1517, that's when the next split is going to start, the Protestant Reformation. So, what exactly are they protesting? So, a lot had been going on. First off, we need to talk about is the post-plague crisis of faith. The plague had really undermined the position of the church to be the salvation of the souls of Europe. And on top of this, we start to see an increasing level of corruption from the leaders of the church. For example, if we're thinking about the greatness of things like St. Peter's Basilica in Rome and the Sistine Chapel ceiling, these things are not coming for free. And so there's, kind of a lot of corruption. If you add to this the fact that in the wake of the plague, you have this serious growth of gunpower-powered absolute monarchies who are jealous of the power that the Catholic Church has, you kind of have a problem on your hands. Enter Martin Luther and his 95 Theses. So Martin Luther is a German monk who decides that he is going to really combat the corruption and problems in the church. He starts to review the Bible, and what he's really, really upset about is this practice called indulgences. So in order to fundraise, the Catholic Church had started selling these indulgences. They were basically, in essence, if you made a certain level of donation to the church, your sins would be forgiven. So that's kind of corrupt, for lack of a better word. And as he starts to review the Bible to look for reasoning that would justify this, he really can't find it. Instead, in his quest for only scripture, sola scriptura, what he finds is that really Christians are justified by their faith alone, that they will be saved and sent to heaven just by their faith in Jesus alone. And so the Catholic Church is very upset about this. They kick Martin Luther out of the church, what's called excommunicate. Let me spell that for you. They excommunicate him. And so he's forced to start his own religion. His own religion, Lutheranism, named after him, part of the Protestant branch of Christianity because they are come out of this protest movement, starts to be really appealing. It's really appealing to the monarchs in Germany and England, where they can kind of wrest some of that power from the church. And people start leaving the church. And in this kind of moment of panic, the Catholic Church decides that they are going to have a counter-reformation, that they are going to deal with some of the problems that maybe Martin Luther created. So they meet in a city in Italy called Trent, today it's Trentino, and over the course on and off of probably like 20, 30 years, they start to deal with some of these problems. Some of the major tenets of Christianity, like the seven sacraments, like the supremacy of the Pope, like the chastity and the fact that priests can't get married, all of those things they maintain. But some of the other stuff they clean up. Because you now have these two branches of Christianity going at it in Europe, there's a lot of religious fighting. And some of that really manifests in real serious violence. So, an example of that is going to be the 30 Years' War. It lasts from 1618 to 1648. Look at that, 30 years. And just the level of violence and the millions of deaths that come out of this battle between the followers of Catholicism and the followers of Protestantism in Europe has some lasting scars. It does result also in some increased religious freedom, particularly in the German states. But overall, we don't see a lot of it. For example, we can see this example of increased religious tolerance. So this is called the Edict of Nantes. This is kind of an important thing, the Edict of Nantes. And so what Prince Henry does here, he's Prince Henry at the time, he becomes King Henry afterwards. He basically converts to Catholicism to become King of France, and because he was raised as a Protestant, he then issues this edict, this official pronouncement granting kind of a don't ask, don't tell policy towards the Protestants. So we can see, right, and he's doing it in terms of, right, trying to prevent conflict. They will permit Protestants to follow the religion of their conscience, but they can't do it outside their places. They have to be very private about it. So one of the things College Board wants us to take away is that this split really contributed to the growth of Christianity. So here's a major reason why. So one of the groups to come out of this is the Jesuits. So the Jesuits, otherwise known as the Society of Jesus, are founded by a guy named Ignatius of Loyola. And Ignatius of Loyola, he is really committed to reforming and growing the Catholic Church. So he forms the Society of Jesus. If you go to Rome, definitely go to Il Gesù, which is like the church, the home church of the Jesuits. It's one of my favorite places in the world. And there's also a church dedicated to him called San Ignacio. And one of the most famous Jesuits today is the Pope. So the Jesuits, they're trying to reform the church. They're trying to grow the church. So they go out there. Let me see if I can make this bigger for you. Oh, I can, yay. Here is a place where they go. So the 3 Jesuit missionaries and scholars who are going to the courts of the Chinese emperors, they're trying to make inroads in China, thinking of all the millions of kind of, for them, right, souls that they could save by converting them to Christianity. And it's kind of one of the first forays of missionaries, of people who are committed to spreading their religion and getting converts to save people in the eyes of Christianity. They really want them to go and convert. And so they do this in China, and then they'll do this around the rest of the world. So I know it won't come as a shock to you because we've talked about this before when we've talked about the Safavids and the Ottomans and the Mughals, but the Ottoman versus Safavid feud really intensifies during this period, and it disrupts overland trade. And also it saps their energy to deal with the Europeans. We're going to see in the next unit the Europeans really on the rise. And because the Ottomans and the Safavids are kind of busy squabbling with each other at things like the Battle of Calderon, they're not noticing the Europeans showing up in their trading ports and starting to take over slowly. So at the Battle of Calderon, that is where the Ottoman Empire does really start to put an end to the Safavid Empire, and the Safavid Empire will become weaker and weaker over time until it kind of fades into nothing. So just to kind of demonstrate for you how intense this rivalry becomes, here is Ibn Kamal, and he is talking about Shakulu, who is kind of a sympathizer with the Safavids, and he says was an agent of the Persian Shah Ismail, the deviant. Ooh, gross, wow. He came to Anatolia to spread the groundless Shia religion. The unbelievers occupied territories belonging to Sunnis, and they spread their invalid religious sect. They damned the 3 initial caliphs, denying their caliphate. They reviled the people of the sciences and the great interpreters of Islamic law. So we can kind of see just how intense this split is. And here is an example as well, right? Many Ottoman Sunni religious scholars have labeled, here's what I want to talk about. So, because of this intensification of rivalry, we start to see a movement, a purification movement within Islam arrives. So that is called Wahhabism. And what they see is that as Islamic societies, as the Safavids, as the Mughals, as the Ottomans are starting to weaken, they blame the fact that Islam became very syncretic, that it blended, that it got away from its roots. So in this document, what they're doing is they're blaming Sufis, but they'll also blame any kind of syncretic practice as well. So lastly, we need to talk about what is going on in India. So one of the major things that Emperor Akbar and the early Mughals are known for is their religious tolerance. And because of their religious tolerance, there's an increasing number of interactions between Hinduism and Islam. And also Islam of the Mughals and other religions. So for example, in this image we can see, I think it's Jahangir, and he is holding a kind of a portrait of the Virgin Mary. So that really demonstrates just how tolerant he is, just how interested he is in learning about other religions. And in this realm, we start to see a syncretic religion develop called Sikhism. And Sikhism is founded by a guy named Guru Nanak. Here he is. And Guru Nanak starts to kind of really embrace the idea of all of us talking about God in our different ways just shows how universal God really is, and that if we focused on our own divinity, and not like our own divinity as in we're gods, but our own kind of how we manifest the spirit of that universal God, things would be better. So for example, here are some sayings attributed to him. O God, the tongue of man has given thee numerous names, but the truth is thy real name from time immemorial. We human beings are neither Hindus nor Muslims, but are bodies and soul of the Supreme Being. Call him Allah or call him Rama, right? So like I was saying, that in the context of these increased interactions, a new syncretic religion will grow. And so we see that there are a lot of changes happening in the world of religions because of these large multi-ethnic, multi-religious empires, and how these emperors, how these kings are trying to either use religion to support their rule in a variety of ways that they could do so.